Here is the raw demographics data that was downloaded from your demographics surveys. I wanted to take a minute to show you some of the issues with data collection, even when it's done in a relatively clean manner. And this can change depending upon what service you use or how you collect your data. Regardless of how many instructions you give, you always get some things that are written in that you don't expect. So you can see over here on the left are the identification numbers that people gave. What I will do is change those to all caps, and then they will be merged with the full survey data and sent back to you when we have that. For now, we just want to summarize the demographics. So for some of the columns, things are fairly straightforward. Let's take a look at analyze distribution for age and gender. So these variable names are kind of long. They've come directly from the survey, so I'll likely change those. And you can see here that they came in as character. So the current age came in as a character, as did gender. And this can depend wholly upon how your data is collected if the numbers come in as character. I can see here that they came in as character because they're giving me counts and probabilities. So let's back out and make a few changes here. First of all, I'm going to change this to age. And now I'm going to change it to numeric, and I'm going to change it to continuous. Press OK. Now, there may be a time when you actually want to report the percentage of people that were 19 or 20, but for now, we'll use it as a continuous variable. And I will change this to gender. Now, we did not have anybody check others, so we're simply male and female. That makes things a little bit easier analytically because we have two groups that are, let's go ahead and do a distribution again on age and gender so we can see them. So we have two groups, male and female, where females, we have double the number of females than males in the class. You can also see that we had 48 responses out of 50 in the course. And now we can get a mean of 20.5 years and 2.3 standard deviations versus a median of 20. We have a few outliers here. Sorry to call you older folks outliers, but I myself am an outlier, so that's okay. But we can get the continuous measures for age. Okay, some of the things that we need to pay attention to would be something like the distribution of race and ethnicity. So you can see here that our largest response, about half of our responses were white, followed by our second largest response of being Black or African American. And then we have 4 who have selected Asian, 1 who's selected Hispanic Latino, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people that have selected white plus something else. So this is where we have to make a decision as a class in terms of what we wanted to do. Let's take a look now what would happen if we did a fit y by x for a group mean on race and age. And then if I asked for means and standard deviations. So the problem here is we can see that the areas where there's one response, so the person that simply selected Hispanic, and then the 2 other people that selected white plus other, have 0 standard deviation, and that's because there's only one response. We currently have 7 different racial groups, and this will make group means rather difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and make the executive decision that we will have white, we will have Black or African American, and we will have other. And that will give us 3 groups to work with when we're talking about summarizing or using race as a predictor. So first of all, I'm going to change this to race raw because it's the way that it was entered in a raw variable. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a recode on race. And so Asian is going to become other. There are 4 Asian. Hispanic Latino is going to become other. There was 1 person that selected that. White, American, Indian, Alaska Native, which could also go under other / multi-race, but we're simply going to call it other. White Asian will be other, and white Hispanic Latino will be other. So now we have 3 groups. There are 14 Black African American, 25 whites, and 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the other race code. And I am going to call this race, and I'm going to call it 3, race 3, because we have 3 groups in race, and press Recode. And so now I want to just verify that I did this correctly. I'm going to take both race variables and do a summary. So tables, summary, and now group, and press OK. And you can see here that you can verify that we have the correct. So Asian became other. There were 4 Asian. Black or African American stayed the same. Hispanic went into other. White stayed the same. And then the multi-race went into other. So that worked correctly. So I'm going to very quickly save this in case something happens. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to take a look at is we were asking people about their employment status. And if we simply do a distribution on the parent question, so the primary question about employment status, we see that we have 4 groups. We have people who are not employed, that's just shy of half. We have part-time, there are 21 people, and then the rest we have full-time with an average hours per week, and then a work study at UAB. And so that will get us those 7 people. So we have 20, 21 versus 7. This is a little bit tricky because those people that are working different hours, so work study and full-time may not be the same considerations. So we may want to think about simply just having yes, no employment. And then we may want to think about having yes, part-time, no, and then people that work a different schedule than part-time or no. So we'll have to think about that a little bit in the way that we want to do it. The first thing I'm going to do is create a yes, no variable. And I'll do that before the data is sent to you. And the other thing we need to think about is that we have 3 different variables here for the way that the hours were inputted. And this is simply the way that Qualtrics collects the data. Some data platforms will just collect a single other option, and some, like this, collected an other for each of the 3. So we need, first of all, 1 column, and second of all, we have 1 respondent here who typed the word hours in. And so that automatically, we need to just get rid of that hours for them. And so there's a couple of different things that we can do, but we basically need 1 column that indicates the hours per week that the respondents are working. And that's whether it's full-time or part-time. And so what I'm going to do is create a formula column that actually creates all of these into 1 column. So to do that, I'm going to do a new column, and I'm going to call this hours per week. Work hours per week. And I'll press OK, and you'll notice it's put it all the way over here on the end. So I'm just going to move it here to these last 3 to be after those 3. And then what I want to do is sort of change these. So this is work study hours. So I'll press OK here. And then this is part-time hours. And this is simply just so that it's simpler for me to manage. And then this is full-time hours. So we're also going to change this employment question here. So what I want to do here is build a formula. And there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. And really what we need to know is if people are working, how many hours they're working. So all the no's, we don't need any hours for them. We just need it for the people who are working. So I'm going to create a formula, go into the columns menu, down to column information, and I'm going to do a formula. And basically what I want to do here is something pretty straightforward called a match. So I want to take my employment and put it in the blue box, and I'm going to hold the Shift key and press conditional and press match. And I don't expect that you all will be able to do this. I just want to show you this is one of the ways. So if their employment is no, then I simply want the hours to be missing. And remember, that's just the period for a numeric variable. if they're full-time hours per week, then I want this to be their full-time hours. If they're work-study hours, then I want it to be the work-study hours. Now, just remember we have this one respondent here that typed the hours in, and this happens in your data. If you have a really sophisticated system, it could have limited it to simply just 2 numbers, or it could have been a drop-down. And I could have manually deleted this hours, but I wanted to show you how that works. So if it's part-time, then I'm going to do another if-then-else statement. So conditional if part-time hours equals 40 hours, then I simply want the response to be 40. Otherwise, it can simply be the part-time hours. So I'm going to press OK, and this may work, and we might get an error message here, because remember, these are characters. And it's going to tell me, oh no, nothing worked, because I have work hours as per week. And so I need to go back in and I need to tell Jump that I want these character values to be numeric. And I simply here do this by telling it that it's a number. I want the number of those from that. And I couldn't do that with the 40 hours because it would simply make it missing. So there's a couple of different ways. Again, I could have just deleted the 40 hours, but this is more formal and it's a better way to keep your raw data as your raw data. So you can see here, here's our Mr. 40 hours or our Miss 40 hours. I don't know the gender of that person, but here's the person that responded with 40 hours. And then we can verify, again, doing a table summary, that I've gotten everybody correct here. So we actually only have 17 different ways that it came in. So here's all of my no's, and you can see it highlighted the no's there. This is a work-study person, part-time, 15-18, and you can go down here and sort of visually check. This is easy because we only have 48 responses. There are some more sophisticated ways to check this if you have a much larger data set. And so now, for those that are working, I can actually now get the continuous measures on the hours per week that they're working. Okay, so the remainder of the data, similar to living on campus or off campus, that will get a 2 group, and then how far away they are. And then we'll look at whether they're full-time or part-time, and then how many credit hours people have in full-time or part-time. And then, of course, we have what traditional year people are. So I will complete this data cleanup, and you'll be able to see and analyze this demographics data according to the template that I provide you to get started on your final project for your team data brief.